Hello everyone, this is Elke from Fossil Creek Nursery. We're going to be talking about seeds and seed starting today. And well, let's start with the bottom end of things, pots. So you have a bunch of different options on how to start your seeds. You can just fill your pots that you want to keep your plants in for a little while. Do that. You can broadcast seed into a tray. This is just a tray with soil in it. There are plug sheets you can get if you're doing large scale production and you don't have a whole lot of room. This here holds, I don't know, 5 times 8 plants versus this 16 plants in this big old tray if you go straight into the bigger pots. And then the other ones that are really nice are these pressed things out of organic matter. So the beauty of that is once your plant gets going, it will actually root through this material, so you can just take the plant and stick it straight into the soil. And they do come in different sizes. So these are 3.5, 4-inch pots here versus the 2-inch starters. And then if you have stuff from last year laying around, like these 4-packs, why not reuse them if they're not torn up? It would be good. This one is dirty. Do actually clean them out first, because you don't know whether there might be diseases still left in them. But those are kind of the major options for what you can start your seeds in. And again, part of it is dictated, how much room do you have? Do you have actually a small greenhouse area that is warm enough for seed starting, or are you starting on a windowsill? If you have a windowsill, then smaller scale stuff obviously is much more beneficial, because plants to get going, they do need light. The seeds often are stimulated to germinate both by water and then by light, so you gotta get them into some light. And even if they germinate and don't have enough light, then they become gangly, sickly plants. So plan a little bit ahead in terms of how many plants do I need. I mean, how many tomato plants, for example, do you need for your household? If you're single, maybe you just need 1 tomato plant and that supplies everything you need. If you have a larger family, obviously more. So that also drives to some extent which kind of container you use. The second part of this whole exercise is soil. What soil do we use? I have here just regular potting soil. It's a really nice mix that's for the most part very fine, but it does have the occasional chunky things in there that obviously for seeds, if one seed were to get buried under that one, it might not be as it might not germinate or do as well. So a finer, with less coarse organic matter potting mix is a great idea to start seeds in. And then they have different brands have this is a specially designed seedling starter mix. So that one is guaranteed to not have any chunks in there. It is a very fine material, again, that will not handicap seeds from germinating. It depends a little bit also on the seeds. Some flower seeds are tiny, tiny, tiny. And so a coarser potting mix might not be as good an idea as, again, using a specially designed seedling mix. So those are the options on how to get started. The second big part of this whole exercise is, when do you start? This is where the seed packets are your big friends. And let's see, what do we have here? I have some regular Italian basil. So read what's on there. These people want you to succeed. So look at what it says on the packet. So this says if you wanted to take them outside and you wanted to start them indoors, you start 4 weeks before the last spring frost. Basil is something that is super easy to grow on your windowsill, and you want to rotate through plants anyway. So you can start this more or less year-round, as long, again, as you have a nice windowsill where you can put it on. Other things, I'm gonna go to this flower here. This is a prairie penstemon. It is a native plant here in the plains. Penstemons are notorious for needing cold stratification. So we're very much so on the late end of it. Cold stratification means they need to be in contact with moist soil, and they need cold temperatures so that the seed breaks its dormancy, and once conditions become amenable for it, they will start germinating. So again, this is, sometimes you may have to go to Google, but this is where generally the seed packets are your best friends, because they will tell you what to do, when, where, why, and how. Let's see, what else do we have? Zinnias, a super easy old-timey flower. So those things you can plant straight outside, or you can pre-start them. And if you pre-start them, it's about, let's see, these guys, 4 weeks prior to transplanting. And zinnias like their soil nice and warm, so that would mean I wouldn't start them now. I would start them more in early, mid-April, depending also how big your plant you want to have. But I would wait probably early April for these guys, because if I'm going to start them inside, I want a decent-sized plant that I take outside. So I would give it a little bit more time than the 4 weeks, where you just end up with a little guy, you know, 1 inch, 2 inches tall. I would want him to be bigger than that. So that's kind of where we're at. And then I want to talk about a couple of other guys, these big old legumes, beans, pole bean, this one, peas, sweet peas, sugar peas. These, they're so much easier to start directly outside. I know every spring we get customers coming in saying they would love to have some beans or peas in containers, but you know how big a pea is. It's so easy to plant. Just take them straight outside. And the big difference between the beans and the peas is peas hate hot weather. So once we hit 80 degrees, they're kind of over it. Which also means, on the other end of the spectrum, that these guys can actually tolerate light frost. So you can go directly, especially if you have nice raised beds and you can get into them, early March, directly into the ground. Set them into the ground. They'll wait. They know when it's time to get going. And even if it freezes, unless we have, you know, one of those Arctic cold spells, they will be just fine. So start them outside early. Lettuce, kale, those kinds of cool season vegetables, they can also handle a light frost. So as soon as you can start working the soil, and we're past the really nasty weather, even if it snows on top of them, you can get them directly outside, or you can start your lettuce inside. Big contrast to the peas are the beans. Beans hate cold feet, so you gotta wait until May. And again, it almost doesn't help you anything if you start them indoors earlier. Just plant them straight outside when the soil has definitely warmed up. So we're talking late May, generally, mid-late May, before you put beans out. Again, you can start them inside, but there really is no reason. And then we have things that grow really, really fast, like a cucumber. Cucumbers, absolutely, you can start them inside or you can start them outside. Either way works. They get going really fast though, so you don't want to plant them too early. This is something that I would plant probably inside mid-late April. So I have a nice, decent plant, but that hasn't started binding yet before I take them outside. So timing is a big thing. What you can start right now, we have tomatoes. Tomatoes, mid-February is an awesome time to start them. And you can go a couple of routes with them. Tomato seedlings are really easy to maneuver around, so you can, throw them in a tray. If you want to grow a bunch of tomatoes, just throw your seeds in a tray, and I could do 4 rows with 4 different plants here in this particular tray. You can go with the smaller plugs. Just know that the plants will outgrow either one of these options pretty quickly. So once they get in the tray, once they get some real leaves, I would want to take them out. And I love pencils for transplanting. You can dig underneath the root, to lift it gently up, hold the plant gently on the top, dig underneath, lift it out, and then you can move them over into a container where they can sit in more or less until they go outside. Or again, if you're just getting a handful or less tomatoes, you can just go straight into these bigger pots. The big thing about them is just keep them moist. So let's just see. What I do, this is last year's seeds. You can generally keep seeds for a couple of years. You don't have to buy brand new ones each and every year. So this guy is packaged in another separate little pack so you don't lose them all. And then what I do, I'm gonna go straight into the bigger pots. And I generally just put 2 seeds in, because I can always, just like I was saying, transplanting them out of the tray, if there were 2 to germinate in one pot, I can still transplant it over into another one. If I can get into that little baggie, maybe we won't plant them right now. Well, we're gonna leave that for later, I guess. I'm gonna start them later, but tomatoes, awesome time to get them started now. And again, they will want a nice sunny spot. So when you do broadcast seeding, like I want to do here at this tray, I have Missouri Evening Primrose. It's a great large flowering plant that is more of a ground cover, a spreader, that does really well in this part of the world. It has giant yellow shiny flowers. What I have in this little pot here is sand. So I'm gonna mix my bunch of flower seeds in with the sand, because if I were to try and spread them out nicely and evenly, I still end up with clumps of all the plants sitting in one spot. So if I mix them up with the sand here, just mix them in. And then I can go ahead and just use the sand to effectively dilute, spread that on here. Just keep going, spread them on. And the sand doesn't disturb anything. It's again just an easy way of diluting the amount of seeds that end up in any one location. I have a little bit much sand here, but we're just going to keep spreading. Get some everywhere. And in some instances, sand is enough to cover seeds. And again, this is where your seed packet is your best friend. Depending on the seed size, if you have itty bitty little seeds, they don't like to be buried deep into the soil, versus this here, these are medium-sized seeds, so I'm gonna just cover them with a little bit of soil here. And then I'm gonna water them in well, make sure that they're firmly in contact with the soil so they don't dry out easily. If there is loose contact and the soil is very fluffy, they might dry out, and it's super crucial when they just start germinating that they do have moisture at all times, because they're very fragile when they just get started to germinate. So that is broadcast seeding in a nutshell. Again, water this in and keep it nice and moist. Yeah, I guess I'm kind of through what I was gonna show you guys. Again, with these little plugs, you would take individual seeds Some chocolate flower here. That's another lovely, lovely, lovely native plant that smells so amazing first thing in the morning. You absolutely want to smell those. Those have kind of medium-sized seeds, so I can see the individual seed, which is great. I can just take one, stick it in there, tap it in, cover it with a little bit of soil, and there we go. So we'll get these guys going in a bit. Does anybody have any questions about seeds and seed starting? I can't read. Do we have any questions? Well, thanks for stopping by, everyone, and we'll see you next time with our next class. Bye-bye.